but how are you going to make them better? And it really
Right.
is being accountable to yourself. At some point, you have to, because no one's coming to save you. So you either want to change what's happening or you want to just sit in it. Welcome back to Muse on the Mic. I'm Riley.
And I'm Emily. Thanks again for joining us on another amazing episode of Muse on the Mic. So glad everybody joined us today. We've got a really interesting one today because we are digging into our viewers and our audience, and I can't wait. Riley, what are we talking about today?
Well, we saw a second video we're going to watch and react with you guys to. But more interesting is we got our viewers to give us their take on watching this video. So again, this is the second video that we're watching from Chris Williamson interviewing Dwayne Knoll. It's from Instagram. And I think oftentimes when we do our men's appreciation series or just speaking about men, oftentimes guys probably look at us thinking like, how do you guys know about men or what they're thinking? So what better way? Now, I mean, mind you, I think we do know a lot about men, but let's go direct to the source. So we put this out to our viewers on Instagram and Twitter for them to watch the video and give us their insight. And it was not quite what we expected, but absolutely fascinating.
I love that you touched on that because we have gotten the odd comment under some of our videos or under our like shorts or reels or whatever. And I think people don't necessarily always know where we're coming from, right? We don't always introduce our like professional background in every single episode, which we probably should, but especially not in a short little clip, right? There's no time to fit that in a 60-second TikTok, for example. And so there is the odd comment of some dude who's like, fucking broads, just what do you know about us? Blah, blah, blah. And fair point. I'm not one. We are always speaking from an outside perspective. It's not that I think that we know men better than they know themselves at all. I think the perspective that we are blessed to receive in the position that we hold in our careers allows us an insight that other men and other women don't hear because they are not in this position. Like a therapist, you know, they're in a very unique position because what they're told is very different than what John Doe is telling his friends, his peers, his lovers, his whatever. What he tells his therapist is unique and special and particular. And I think owning an adult business, having the clients all be men, the staff all be women, we hear a very specific angle of things. And it has a very unfiltered filter. Like we are in a bubble in a vacuum of sorts because it's the context under which that we engage with these clients. So whether it's them confiding in us as owners, whether it's the stories we hear from our attendants that are one-on-one with the customers, to my history as an attendant as well, when I was a sex worker, and the things that you hear, no offense to the dudes are like, okay, you know everything. You're right, I don't, but you don't know what I know. And I know a plethora of men. I know general consensus of men. I don't know what that guy in the comment thinks because I don't know that guy. He knows what he knows, but he doesn't know what the thousands and thousands of men have told me, right? And so I think therein lies the uniqueness of our position and why we can speak confidently, not always accurately, but confidently about men that we have met, that we have encountered, stories that we have heard, and things that happen in real life experience in real time in our lives. And so that's our perspective. For those of you that are new, there you go. We own a rub and tug in Toronto, Canada. And on the pod, we love to talk about what it's like to run a legal business in Toronto in the adult industry that deals with the complications and the nuanced areas of sex work and how mysterious it can be, but yet complicated in sometimes a beautiful and sometimes a very ugly way. Like it's got a lot of layers. And so I think we do come with something very unique. But after watching this video, we both talked about it. We're like, we want to do this video on the show, but maybe we aren't the right ones to speak to this topic because who am I to say why a man may or may not choose therapy? I think the trend is everyone should get therapy. I wish health insurance and national health programs all over the world provided it free. Imagine how much better people would be. But we're not quite there yet as society, and I would hate to speak incorrectly on this one. So we did. We opened it up on those two social media channels for the dudes to kind of give us their insight. And gosh, they were generous. There was so many of them, and I was so impressed. And some of them wrote novels, and even those that were just a paragraph, it was sincere, it was genuine, it was from the heart, and they came with the same candor and trust in something they knew was going to be shared with the public, and yet the same way that they speak to us when they speak one-on-one with us. And I think that is so special. I cherish it so much. And so I'm so excited to share some of this feedback. We have the most amazing clients.
We do.
We do. I think it's so sweet. And yet
Well,
I find this guy, Dwayne, really fascinating. I think he's an interesting character to hear from.
And I don't know if you know all these gentlemen that emailed in, but I don't think they're necessarily all Muse clients. It could be just viewers of the pod. But so it could be a mixed bag here. But I think their responses were so raw and so real. And they really, like you said, they really trusted to give their feelings and their input. And that we are so appreciative of. Just go watch the video and we'll talk on the other side, guys.
Okay, let's go.
The average real man does not need to go get therapy for the battles and the burdens he's carrying inside. What he needs is for those that he's carrying them for to recognize that they're there and to respect it and to be grateful for it. They don't need to talk it out to get rid of it. They need the one that they're going through this hell for to recognize it's there and to be grateful that the man is carrying this for them. They don't need therapy. They need gratitude.
There we go. There's the video in question. Let's jump right into the replies and get to it. Let's hear from the guys. So, hey, Emily and Riley. I just finished watching the video. Sorry for the delay. But I think it's so important to check up on men's mental health too. It gets ignored so easily in today's world, and no one pays attention to it. But really, it's just as important as women's mental health. We're all humans, and we all go through challenges. Uplifting men should be a normal activity, and I hope it becomes more of a common practice moving forward. I absolutely agree with that one. Very straightforward, but very honest. I love it. Here we go. This one threw me for a loop, but yet can't argue a minute of it. Let's go. Hello, here are my insights on this video. The average man, ? Am I an average real man? I get the impression that there's some sort of anti-therapy message here. Like gratitude will be a better substitute for professional help. There is nothing wrong with a man, or anybody for that matter, to seek out therapy. I'm also a little troubled by the sense that he is suggesting that women need to recognize and give gratitude to their man. Like a real man can handle the weight of the world just as long as his woman knows her place. I also find it interesting that this site claims to be a clothing brand. I think that was just one of the people tagged in it. Are they selling a political agenda? Is this about religious themes? I've watched several other videos from this site, and it left me with a little bit of sense of unease. And I was like, oh, interesting. I guess there is an element to that video that's a little bit anti-therapy in its messaging. I don't know if it's political or what the purpose of the page is, or even Dwayne saying that statement. Like, I don't know if I don't think he had an agenda. I think he was having a conversation. But it hadn't crossed my mind that it could come across as an anti-therapy message. Right. I thought it was putting just the highlight on, hey, men need more support from our counterparts, whether you're gay, straight, or purple, it doesn't matter, right? But like from our others, we need more, which I agree with. At the same time, I fully agree with this. More men should get therapy. More people should get therapy. And the onus of the understanding or his ability to feel, secure in his purpose and his place in his own life and his own world should not exclusively be the burden of a woman to carry. That makes perfect sense. Makes perfect sense.
Yeah. And I think Dwayne, this is his opinion and his feeling. And like you said, at first glance, I found it interesting. And I like Dwayne. We've watched a few videos from him, and he seems very lived. He's had
Yes.
experiences, right? So I listen to him and I try to really absorb what his thoughts are, but that doesn't mean it's the thoughts of everyone. And I like that it did come up almost more in a controversial way, that guys weren't going to go along with just because he said so, and had their own take on it, which I find really interesting.
Yeah, definitely. And perspectives that we wouldn't have considered,
Hmm.
especially from our standpoint and our unique perspective that I kind of touched on before. Um, I found it interesting. Okay, let's jump to the next one. Just watched. That's an interesting take. He would still need to speak to the people he is holding things inside for. He would still need to communicate that he's taking on these battles for someone. I think in some ways, the speaker is trying to deflect away communication and have understanding and gratitude for taking on these battles for someone. But did the average man ask them to take on the battles, or did they assume the responsibility and expect the gratitude without being asked? I believe in long term relationships that sometimes we forget the battles and mental challenges we take on and just think the other should assume what is going on and respect it. Communication starts to fall apart or stop, and yet we continue to expect the same experiences we had earlier in the relationship. Such a good point.
Hmm.
If you're a long term shopper of a store, after a while you forget all the good things it offers and you can focus on all the faults and all the warts. I do appreciate the speaker trying to explain on behalf of men why we do what we do, but he also lets the man off the hook for a lack of communicating, whether that be to a significant other, a friend, family, etc. I hope that helps. His name. Cheers and happy holidays. It's Christmas over here while we're recording this, guys.
I like it.
So I like how this one touches on the both sides of it. That there's equal responsibility, there's obviously equal communication responsibility, and his feedback and comments about long-term communication and long-term relationships is bang
Hmm.
on, if you ask me. I thought that was really prevalent.
Yeah, I agree. And I mean, I think men they do have a responsibility to communicate, and we can't as partners, and I mean, this is just being on the woman's side, not friendships or family.
Right.
We can only, we have a responsibility to listen to those that communicate. And
Yeah.
so unless you're being in an active role of participating in that, we can't, we're not mind readers, and we need to be given a little something.
And vice versa, right? Men hate when they're put in a mind reader position because they're like, I
Mhm.
don't fucking know.
Right.
Can, for sure. How would you know? Because we're complicated too, right? And
Yeah.
so, how would someone know without being told explicitly? You can't know what you don't know.
Mhm.
This next one had me in stitches in a great way because
Okay.
I love a spicy person and is a spicy guy, and I was like, lay it on us. Hi, Emily. My response to that video: total horseshit. Can I just say? I've only ever heard men use the word horseshit, and I love it when they do it. To me, it comes across as a hard cuss, like
Okay.
the MF word. Like it's just like balls to the wall, horseshit. There's no soft way to go about horseshit. So I
Right.
love it. Like lay it on me. Woo. Personally, I carried a lot when I was younger. I'm 45 now. I didn't know how to express my feelings or even communicate what was going on inside my head. And that continued on until my late 30s when everything I was dealing with bubbled over and I broke. I ended up on a Form 1 psychological hold in a hospital for about 8 hours because I can't say the word. I was contemplating unaliving myself. I know we cuss a lot on the show, but I don't want to over push the censorship. It was only after that incident that I reached out to a family friend and she pointed me towards my therapist. My therapist saved my life, and I finally learned how to properly communicate my feelings. This came too late to save my marriage, but my relationship with my ex is better now than it's ever been because of my therapist. My relationship with my children is better than it has ever been because of my therapist. If a guy out there has a good circle of friends that he can lean on and is able to communicate what he's dealing with to those friends, amazing. He probably doesn't need a therapist. But if a guy doesn't have that circle or the communication skills or the healthy coping strategies, then he needs a therapist before he breaks. I hate this side of masculinity, that men are supposed to be mentally invincible, that we can carry the weight of all our problems in all our lives or all our families' lives and just soldier on and expect gratitude for doing so. Screw that. Talking to a therapist is a sign of strength because you know you're not strong enough to carry the burden alone. Those are my thoughts, and you can use my name if you wish. We won't. And he says
Well said.
hi to some of our girls.
Well said. I mean,
I love it.
he was so candid, and I really appreciate that because it really is a perspective that really makes me kind of sit back and think about that. And like he said, you have to have the ability to communicate, and that's not easy for everyone. Let's just face it. Kudos to him. I
Right?
appreciate his reply in length because that took some time to write to us, and I'm sure is relatable to so many of our viewers.
100%. When I first read it, I got choked up because I just have such a soft spot for men. And as soon as they tell, I mean, everyone has a story, right? Everyone has baggage and trauma. But as soon as they express it, I get this lump in my throat, the tears in my eyes, and I can't help it. Even if it's a happy story, I happy cry too.
Yeah.
It gets me. And that one got me right away because to be able to so peacefully reflect back on a failed marriage, especially with children involved, and it sounds like he's worked through so much that he's not even holding bitterness anymore. He's just holding communicative, positive space is
Yeah.
to me so strong
Yeah.
because so many people make that impossible to do. Listen, we both have some tragically shitty exes. And it's almost impossible to think about getting to that kind of a place, right? Or over the years when you first broke up, you didn't think, oh, we'll eventually get to a good place. Like it's just so unfathomable based on how a relationship might end, and most of them end messy, right? Most don't end cleanly. But to be able to so confidently reflect back and to kudos your therapist for that as part of your success story is their success as well. And I think what a rewarding career is that therapist.
Oh,
I
sure.
hope he's told his therapist these things because that would be some feel good things to hear from for someone who's always helping people with heavy things. And that might feel so good for the therapist to know, but such an important lesson for other men to hear, because whether you choose to or not, therapy can do amazing things, as can a great circle of friends. But when you've never learned how to communicate like that before, to just expect someone all of a sudden to know how, let alone to do so, is really setting a man up to fail, or a person up to fail, because if they don't know, they don't know. Again, you don't know what you don't know. And so if you never grew up in a home where you communicate, or you've never been in other relationships where that was expected from you, you literally, I mean, it's like telling someone to just go cook the perfect steak if they've never even made toast. Like, it's just not going to happen. But you can learn so much from therapy about yourself, but about the other people in your life through things like that. Learning to communicate will take you further than most other things you can invest in yourself. Look, you can go to the gym every day, but the minute you stop, it all starts to deteriorate. But if you go to a therapist and you learn proper communication skills, you could take that into your work life. You could take that into your senior years. Like, you could take that with you to the day you die, and maybe even beyond, because it's a skill. It's a Boy Scout badge that you've earned, and you can wear that with pride, and you don't lose those skills. I think it's such a powerful thing. I wish things like that were more included in education, because imagine if that was taught when we were young. We wouldn't have to, go and spend thousands of dollars on therapy to suddenly learn how to talk to humans. Like, it would be natural.
It's such a humbling thing, like for either sex, but specifically speaking to men, for this guy in particular, to acknowledge he needs that help. Listen, there's a failed marriage, there's failed relationships, there could be a failed career, whatever has failed in your life, to accept and acknowledge that you need help to change the path of these relationships.
Yeah.
Is so monumental to me, because I think so many people would rather wallow in the pain of it and say, I lost this and I lost, name all the things you've lost, but how are you going to make them better? And it really is being accountable to yourself. At some point you have to, because no one's coming to save you. So you either want to change what's happening, or you want to just sit in it. And my hat goes off to him, because I think there's so many success stories, I'm sure, but I think there should be more. So let's just all be accountable to ourselves and all of our bullshit, and just get the help we all need, really.
So well said. It's so true. Kudos. Kudos to this guy specifically, but all men that take that plunge because
Mhm.
it's scary with the unknown.
Yeah.
Walking into a therapist's office when you've never, even making the appointment is scary as far as I'm concerned. You don't know what you don't know again. And so, like, shit is terrifying.
Yeah.
It's one thing to be like bungee jumping. You may not know, but you kind of know what it looks like because you've seen it in a
Right.
video and you know how it ends, right? Hopefully. But like walking into something where you're going to be pushed into uncomfortable vulnerability and emotions that feel awful is not a joyous thing you skip in the door to. And yet, as brutal as some of the therapy sessions I've had, I've never left feeling worse.
Right.
I can't say I've always left feeling like resolved or anything, but I never left a single one, even with therapists that weren't a good match for me. I never left being like, oh, fuck, now I feel 100 times. Oh, that was a waste of my time or anything like that. You've learned something, even if all you learned is this isn't the therapist for me. You've learned, you've come out better than you walked in the door and hopefully got a little weight off your shoulders at the same time. So yeah. Anyways, before I keep rambling.
Oh, no.
This one is for the adults. You were warned.
Why did the sperm cross the road? Why? Because I put on the wrong sock this morning.
Groaner.
Over my head moment.
You guys look like
I
you met
love
at like a
when
hot
mine was like
topic.
that,
What'd y'all meet, man? Y'all look like you have freak shit sex. Like I would watch, bro. Like you treat her like a Russian gymnast backflip. Like ah! And he's packing for sure. 'Cause I can see he's long as shit. When did you know your dick was big?
You're craving something a little extra, aren't you? Subscribe to our Patreon and enjoy the ride.
Next one. Hi, Emily and Riley. Here's my thoughts on this video, and I hope it helps. I think this take perpetuates the idea that men need to carry the burden on their own and insulate themselves with their problems. Gratitude is definitely something anyone needs from those around them, but having someone who will listen, act as a sounding board, and even offer some empathy is way more important. If we follow this advice, we'd keep all our negative feelings and stress to ourselves and just wait for that time bomb to go off. Similar to the horse shit.
Yeah.
And yeah, again, I didn't personally take in that take when I first watched the video. But after seeing some of these emails and I rewatched the video and I was like, oh, right.
Yeah, no, you don't see it. I do now. It's not where I initially started.
But again, what a blessing and a unique position we're in that we even got like these replies because we wouldn't have known this had these gentlemen not shared. I love it. Okay. I've got a few more. All right. So he has a point. Talking it out to a therapist will not solve the problems that we as men face. We will just be told, you're a man, suck it up, move on. He's 100% correct on that point. The other person showing gratitude is what we need the most. I can count on my hands the amount of times someone else, mostly women in bracket, showed me gratitude. Thank yous, I appreciate yous, etc. Please keep my name anonymous.
That is terrible.
Yes. Yes.
Really?
We as women have failed men like this because no man should go through an entire lifetime and on, less than 5 fingers be able to count the thank yous he's received or I appreciate you. And you know what? Not that we always have to tie everything back to MUSE specifically, because we always like to talk, as well about the general sex work world. But if anyone ever wonders why men like to see sex workers, exhibit A, B, C, D, E, and F. You know what I mean? Because so many people live lives like that, where they don't have a partner like that. They don't have a friend like that. They may not have family. And so who does provide that for you? Because listen, a therapist is great. Therapists can even give you a hug when you're crying. Like there's a lot they can do, but there are certain things that just need to come from your personal circle. And there isn't really a replacement for it. You can fill it with other things. You can drown it in other things. You can avoidance it to death. But it's still a void that you have. And it's still something that you need. I think a good example that most people can relate to is the lack of touch that we all had during the pandemic lockdowns. People craved a hug, a handshake,
Yeah.
a high five, for goodness sake. I know I did. I remember hugging you the first time after like 2 freaking years. I cried my eyes out for no reason for like 8 minutes long. But it was like I hadn't had a hug in
Mm-hmm.
that friggin' long, and someone just touched my arm, and oh my God, like it all flooded out. And
Mm-hmm.
so to go that long in your life without someone saying, you know what, hey, thank you so much for doing blah blah blah, I really appreciate it.
Mm-hmm.
We failed, because that is our jam as women, our nurturing abilities, our
Yep.
compassion, our softness, our ability to touch a man on his arm and go, hey babe,
Yep.
thanks. Like, oh,
Right.
that's fodder to a man's fuel, you know? And I want to hug him, first of all. Let's just say
Mm-hmm.
that. Sir, we appreciate you. We love you.
Yeah.
Thank you for this. Thank you
Yes.
for
Thank
writing
you.
us. Thank you for
Writing.
watching and listening. Yeah, we love you for all of it. But I love that he kind of took the flip side of the horseshit approach, right?
Right.
And was like, you know what? We're often told, even by therapists sometimes, suck it up, buck up. You're a man. You got to do, pull up your bootstraps and
Well,
get back to it.
I appreciate that may have happened to him, but I don't think that's should be happening. Like, I don't think
Agreed.
that's a good therapist.
Agreed. But imagine the trauma that would make you carry, because
Oh, for
again, it's
sure.
so terrifying to walk into a therapist's office for the first time. No different than a man that once shared with a woman or a partner, and she scolded him, or, did
Mm-hmm.
something that made him kind of draw back and be like, well, I'll never be vulnerable to you again. And
Right.
for many men, it only takes once.
Mm-hmm.
And they are like, I will never have to learn that lesson again, no matter who she is. She could be Mother Teresa. And I'm not telling her shit, because I know what happens when, and I'm not taking that risk. And
Yeah.
so imagine you finally build up the balls after, 50 some odd years of trying to carry your own shit, to go into a therapist's office and been told this.
Mm-hmm.
I can't,
Terrible.
I can't put into words what that burden may feel. That's a burden that
Yeah.
I don't even want to know what feels like, but I can
Mm-hmm.
only imagine. Pull my heartstrings again. Okay, next one. I'm not always great at expressing this kind of thing, but I'll give it a shot. I agree with the point being made. Men don't often need therapy as much as they need understanding from people who can acknowledge their suffering without jumping in with well meaning but unhelpful advice. Sometimes all it takes is respect and acceptance, recognizing the burden someone is carrying without any judgment. I love this one.
Yeah.
I love
I
this
think
one
it's
so much. It hits a little bit deep for me, because I come from a family that's really based on judgments. And I know I talk about my family a lot on the pod, and like I have a lot of like positive reflection on my childhood, much more complex, difficult circumstances in my adult life, especially currently. But I've always rebelled against their patterns of judgment, and it's often made me the black sheep of the family, a bit of an outcast, etc. But I refuse to carry on that generational cycle, because I know what it does to people, because I experienced it myself. And so to risk as a man confiding something where it's probably 70-80% that you're going to be guaranteed you're going to be judged for it, and most judgment is not in a positive light, let's be serious. That's risky. And yet I agree with what he said about well-meaning but unhelpful advice. And this is kind of what I meant to say, and probably should have said better at the beginning, because although we have the perspective that we have, we are not men. And maybe sometimes the advice we give is well-intentioned, but not necessarily helpful to someone. Saying,
mm-hmm.
go see a sex worker isn't the solution for everybody, right?
Yeah.
Come to Muse isn't the be all and end all for every problem, especially if you can't afford it or you're not local. Like there's so many like nuances, right? And so he put it much more eloquently, whereas I ramble on. But to just have maybe even just the choice, or to have both a therapist and a great listening person in your life, be it a partner, a friend, a neighbor, I think logically makes sense as the perfect balance. Would you not want both of those things to either
Right.
be options or options you take action on? And again, not everybody knows how, but once you do, or if you do, take advantage of having those options, because it would almost be silly not to. Because why would you not lean on that friend? Why would you wait for yourself to explode one day when you can have places and people and spaces where you can confide and be more vulnerable? To me,
Mhm.
that's what stood out about this one. I think it's my fave.
And I think it reminds me of, I mean, even for women, we want to be generally heard. I think women
Mhm.
struggle with that because men are such fixers. You tell your man a
Yes.
problem and he's like, okay, we're going to do A, B, and C. And it's like, no, 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 I don't need you to fix it. I need you to listen.
Right.
And I think men need that too. It's not for someone to find a solution or a remedy. It's just to hear them. Being heard is
Right.
so powerful. And that's what I took from his email in.
That's true. I love that. That's so true. All righty. This one's a long one, but it's the last one. But
Okay.
it's the longest. Strap in. All right. This one is also from one of our customers, actually. Great dude. I know this guy. Hi, Emily and Riley. The video shared with me is a person who says that the average real man does not need therapy. They need gratitude for the battles and burdens they carry and to be respected. Please note, this is only my opinion. Feel free to adjust or summarize if needed. I would never. I identified the 2 points presented. First point is real men do not need therapy. Second point is the need for gratitude. I'll start on the first point. Real men. There's no such thing. I love that some of them really took issue with this real men thing, and I agree.
Yeah,
That's a toxic
I agree.
feminism statement, and it's bullshit. All men are real men. Let's be serious. First and foremost. Okay, so there's no such thing. Does my father who raised me to fear his anger a real man? Or am I who will play with my child and raise them with kindness a real man? Either way, this is a lot of toxic masculinity from the statement real men. A big shout out to all the people, men, women, and others who this can apply to. Need for therapy. From my experience, people underestimate what therapy can provide. Agreed. I've gone through years of therapy during and after being in a physically abusive relationship. My female partner was physically abusive, arrested, and all. I found therapy was a way to increase my emotional intelligence, being able to identify my triggers, my weaknesses, my strengths, and learning how I can raise my child in a way that respects and teaches them proper values without force or consequences. The clip undermines what therapy is. I believe it should be a free service to the world. Again, agreed. People would be
Mm-hmm.
better, stronger, smarter, and more kind with skills to be more introspective and observant. The need for gratitude for the battles and burdens they carry to be respected. Next one. With effective therapy, the increase in introspection and observation, a person can make their own gratitude and respect despite interactions of those around them. I love that point.
Mm-hmm.
Having a child is a great example of this. Two things. If my child and I were in the middle of the water on a raft with only space for one, there would be no question that I stay in the water. If I was with my partner, there would be discussion. Touche. Would I ask for gratitude and respect for my partner in the same way that I would ask for my child? No. I, at least one, should do it because it's part of their values. The same scenario applies to receiving gratitude. I do not raise my child or do things for my partner because of the gratitude and the respect. I do it because I know it is what I value and that it provides me the satisfaction I desire. In summary, I found the video highlighted toxic masculinity by using the mentality to push my emotional and mental state on others instead of being a strong individual who lives by their values and does not seek external satisfaction for the difficult things they do.
So true.
Brilliant,
So
right?
true. Toxic masculinity stood out to me, and he is so emotionally intelligent, and clearly that comes from having therapy, but like
Yep.
well fed, amazing.
Agreed. This
Mhm.
is the example of a healed person. This is someone who's probably still on their own journey, obviously, but has taken the most possible from even the mistakes they've made.
Mm.
And I believe this, that life is a series of lessons. And so why go through hard shit if you're not going to take the lessons with you? It's a waste otherwise, right? And to me, that just makes no sense. Just like regret, it makes no sense. It's a waste of what it happened. Fuck, do better. Like just, and so someone that grabbed the reins and really dove into like the accountability this man is showing for himself is spectacular. It is strong. It is sexy almost. I'm like, what? That's a man.
Emotional intelligence is extremely sexy.
It is so sexy. It is desirable. It shows, just as a woman, I don't know if this guy is single or otherwise, but as a woman, it's like, not only do I desire a man like that, but it shows that my life with a man like that would probably a little bit smoother sailing than what could be the dramas of someone who lacks emotional intelligence or who hasn't healed, even though we all carry baggage. But it's like, are you dragging it behind you or are you rolling through the airport with a suitcase on wheels? Like, let's be serious, right? Take it with you. Don't drag it behind you. And life with someone like that would be so much easier because imagine the conversations you'd have when hard shit happens. It would just, those are going to be great, productive conversations. Even if you're on either sides of a point, you will get to ground with someone who can converse and reflect that way. I love it. And all of his points about it made complete sense. Again, I think you need both. I think men, the one thing I think men should not do is keep it inside till they explode. To me, that is the red flag. That is the problem. So whether it's get a puppy or, get a great woman by your side or an awesome therapist, do something so that you don't end up with those explosive needs or that you just can't take it anymore and it all comes out. Or see a sex worker because we can also be a Band-Aid or a crutch through some of those hard times. Let's not neglect what sex workers offer for people in private scenarios. I love this, guys. Thank you so much to everyone that wrote in. I'm so grateful. And what personal, beautiful stories. I love the stories of men's lives because this is the shit that your average woman misses. And they can on sex work all they want, but this is the beautiful stuff that we get to experience. And I wouldn't have it any other way.
I agree. Or ask the question because listen, we just asked and here we've received. But listen, we still love Dwayne Knoll, I should say.
And Dwayne Knoll.
I think he missed the mark here a bit. Mind you, this is his opinion, and I respect that. But I don't know if we have enough reach here on MUSE On The Mic. But Dwayne, if you do hear this, I'd love to hear him weigh in on the responses we got because they're so in contrast to his opinion. And again, I respect everyone's opinion and their personal feelings. But again, thank you for everyone that participated. It was really interesting and insightful for us.
I love it. I absolutely love the share. It's so good. This is the beautiful shit we talk about all the time when we're like, oh, men tell us things. They tell us things they're not telling everybody else. And you're right. Just ask. And if they won't, send it to us as a topic suggestion and we'll dive in and we'll ask the boys for you. Right. But let's get that message across. So on that note, I would tell everyone to like the video, share this video with your friends because there might be a man out there in your life that may not come across this show organically or this episode in particular. And you sharing it with them could open up a conversation that might lead to you being that friend for them. Or they might end up opening up and be like, I've always wanted to try therapy and I just don't know where to start. And you can kind of help them on that path. Or if you have no one, always DM us. Our DMs are always open. We're always here to chat. I love this episode. I love men. I love the guys. Thank you, everyone, for joining us on this awesome episode of MUSE On The Mic. And we'll see you next time.
Bye, guys.